been like the year of after actions for external affairs.
Sure.
So if you were going to talk specifically about coronavirus and say, like, if you're just going to grab everybody in external affairs by the shoulders and say, do this, what would your advice be to them?
Yeah. Well, it's really timely that we're having this conversation now because actually it's been right about a year since FEMA took a lead role in the COVID response and activated the NRCC, in support of that. So, it was funny. I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues, and some of the challenges that we were working through a year ago still
Mm,
exist today, right? I think what's super complicated about COVID is two factors. One, pretty much every federal government agency in some certain capacity has some sort of role under the
mm,
national response framework when it comes to a pandemic response like this. So I think that's one. I think the second biggest issue is the magnitude, the scale. Really can't harken back to another event that had all 50 states plus territories and the District of Columbia having a major disaster declaration simultaneously.
yeah.
It's a huge undertaking. So I think there was also some challenges. HHS had taken on the main response role, and when FEMA integrated, trying to understand, how we were integrating with a public health perspective was a bit of a challenge, and how to
Mm,
manage that data and how to accurately convey that data to the public. I think one of the good things was that when we were still able to go into the office. I think this was another challenge too, right? A lot of people were working remotely because of, in the early days, especially of the pandemic, the personal mitigation measures or the availability of the equipment to implement those measures wasn't in place. So you also had, what you would normally have everybody on the NRCC floor rallying around each other trying to solve these challenges. You were doing them from a remote environment and not there speaking face to face and understanding the other person's side of the equation. So traditional ways that we had worked in disaster response really weren't working. I think one of the challenges and kind of one of the biggest areas for correction that I saw kind of goes back to making sure that the information is accurate before it goes out the door.
Yeah, who
So
knew? Yeah.
yeah, really, right? So there is something to be said, timeliness versus accuracy, right? You have to be timely from a communications perspective in the world that we live in today. Like I mentioned earlier, social media and the 24-hour news cycle, you really don't have a lot of time to get that information out. However, if it isn't accurate, then you have a bigger problem on your hands than being a little bit late to the
Mm,
party. You've got a bigger problem that you've got to try and solve, because any information that you're putting out to the public, especially in those early days of the pandemic, it was crucial that that information be accurate before it go out the door, because people were almost hanging on every word at some of the press conferences and other things that were happening. And so it was really critical that accurate numbers, accurate information, accurate things that we were trying to tell the public to do, to take action on, or to not take action on. Please don't do X, Y, or Z. That information had to be succinct, it had to be timely, and it had to be accurate. And I think with any type of disaster, but especially something like this, where it's so widespread, it was a big challenge in the beginning.